Now, Julian Bridges. Julian lives in Abilene. He served 15 years in Mexico with the Foreign Mission Board. Correct me if I get any of this wrong, please. And then 31 years teaching sociology at Hardin-Simmons University. Julian?
Thank you. I can't resist after seeing this wonderful video about Charles Myers. When we first got to Abilene, he had been the long-term chair of the chaplaincy program at Hendrick Medical Center. And I got this invitation to go and speak at his church, a small church outside of Abilene, where he was also pastor for many years. And then I got another invitation the next year, and the next year, and I was about to run out of messages, on Roddy Moon. But the wonderful thing I discovered was Charles Myers, at that time, and for many, many years, had the church in all of Texas that had the highest percentage giving to the cooperative program. Now, I must say, they discovered oil on the church property, and that didn't hurt. I'm going to read this, but I hope it moves fast enough for you to stay with me. I tried to get within our limit. I won't tell you how many minutes that is to discourage anybody else. But I'd like to mention 4 different aspects or roles that Dr. Maston had, actually 5. The first, teacher. The second, counselor. The third, missionary. And then friend and guide. It's a particular privilege and pleasure to have this opportunity to share about Dr. Maston's influence and his indelible influence, actually, on my life and ministry. I divided this into these 5 parts that I mentioned. First, teacher. My earliest recollection of Dr. Maston was when I entered his introductory ethics course, 4 hours at Southwestern Seminary in the fall of 1952. Dr. Maston's demeanor and delivery made an initial impression. Here was a man, relatively short in stature, not with the voice of a typical preacher, yet there was something compelling that stirred me within. He seemed driven about his material, energized and enthused with this whole discipline called ethics, which was relatively new to me at that time. He delivered his lectures without notes and seemed eager at the end to hear questions in the remaining minutes, which were usually all quickly consumed, leaving us with anticipation about what would happen in the next class period. I've had few professors who could do that. All graduate ethics majors had the opportunity to audit every course that was taught in the department. So I had a great pleasure and exposure to hear Drs. Maston and Scudder as they taught. There were always non-ethics majors in both the BD as well as the graduate seminars, which clearly revealed Dr. Maston's appreciation by fellow faculty. As all of us know, advisors often influence what students choose as electives. Of course, there were also plenty of students who on their own elected to take what Dr. Maston seemed to be offering each semester. In contradistinction to some other professors, he did not talk about his 2 doctorates, his 20-plus books and myriad manuscripts, his honors and awards, his speaking engagements at virtually all Southern Baptist seminaries, his travel to many mission fields and service in the Journeyman Training Program virtually every year, or his participation in focus weeks on university campuses throughout the South. I shall always remember the way he often opened his classes with his prayer phrase, "Accept the gratitude of our hearts, our Father," and then he went on to add whatever he was grateful for that day. His personal ethics exemplified Jesus, and toward the end of Maston's life, he encouraged and challenged us to walk as he walked. A verse from 1 John. Counselor. When my wife Charlotte and I we met at seminary, and we planned to be married, Dr. Maston graciously consented to counsel us. Our pastors were at other locations far away, so we approached him on that. We had several sessions in his office at night. He would accept no pay. The honor, respect, which was good because we didn't have much to offer as seminary students. The honor, respect, and homage that he always paid to Mrs. Maston, whom he usually referred to as Mommy, was an example for us all. And as men, we should always view our wives, and women in general, as never less than our equals. Amen. Missionary. As many of you know, he and Mrs. Maston were initially planning to become international missionaries. When their first son, Tom Mack, was injured in birth, suffering cerebral palsy, they were not able to be appointed. They chose to keep him rather than institutionalize him, I might say. But God gave Dr. Maston a new vision. Why could he not encourage others to go, especially graduate students in ethics, who could teach in Baptist seminaries around the world? And this he did. He obtained Lilly Foundation grants, which enabled some of us to gain teaching experience while we were still working on our PhDs. Upon their invitation, he visited Baptist missionaries of on all the major continents. We had him in Mexico twice, where he also spoke to national pastors as well. Friend and guide. Whenever and wherever in the world we were, I always felt I could write or call Dr. Maston and share with him any question, concern, or need. And I did a number of times. As busy as he was, he made time for his former students. He wrote a letter of recommendation to the first church that I pastored, and then for our missionary appointment. He served as a major reference for graduate degrees in sociology. When family illness required us to return to the States, he personally called Dr. Ray Summers to see if there were any openings in ethics at Baylor, but there were none, nor in sociology. When the president of Hardin Simmons University saw the name of T.B. Maston as one of my references, he instructed the academic vice president, and the vice president told me this. He said, "I am instructed to hire you," and he offered me an advanced rank. In his later years, we were blessed to be able to bring Dr. Maston twice to the HSU campus. He spoke in chapel and in my classes. In both places, he charmed the students with some self-deprecating humor about aging, and then captivated their attention to the end of his presentation. He stayed with us both times and was an unusually gracious guest. You felt like you were hosting a genuine friend who is grateful for the smallest favors. It was as if he was simply emulating our master when he said, "Let him who would be greatest among you be the servant of all." Dr. Maston has been and continues to be the greatest male example in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian.